What to do when your teen panics directly before an exam. If they are saying things to you like, what if I blank out and forget everything? What if I fail? What if I don't get into uni? What if I can't answer the questions? What if I run out of time? Now, you can offer sort of surface level reassurance by saying things like, don't worry, darling, that's never going to happen, or you've got this. But in my experience, it's not nearly as effective as the simple exercise I'm going to share with you today that you can do with your teen to really calm their anxiety and help them to feel much more in control so they can smash their exam. If we haven't met before, my name is Rachel. I'm a Cambridge University qualified academic coach, and I work with GCSE and A-level students to improve their results by 1 to 3 grades across all subjects by building their executive function skills. So the exercise that I'd like to share with you is called the circle of control versus the circle of influence. It's taken from Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And all you need to do it is a pen, a bit of paper, and your teen. So on your bit of paper, I would love to invite you to draw 2 circles. One big circle on the outside, and we want to label that concern. And then we want to draw a smaller circle in the middle and call that influence. And the first thing that's really good is to sit down with your teen and ask them what are all the things they're concerned about. And I'd love you to spend a decent amount of time doing this and get everything out, get them to keep coming, because they'll say a few things, but we need to be always asking the question, and what else? It's sometimes called the AWE question, AWE, and what else, and what else? We want to try and go quite deep with this in order for it to really have the cut through and the impact that we're looking for. So they might say things like, my teachers are bad. What if I freeze in the exam? I'm concerned I run out of time. I might not get into uni. I'll never be as good as my cousin that got into Oxbridge. I'll fail everything. All my worst topics come up. I'll forget what I know. If only I'd started 6 months ago. And this is one I hear a lot from teens, especially as we get close to exams, this feeling of regret. I wouldn't be in the situation if I'd only started earlier. So we want to get all these things out, especially things like, your best friend or a sibling or a cousin or someone that did something amazing that you feel there's a comparison to. Your teen might also be concerned that they disappoint you as their parent. That might be something that comes up for them, whether they will share that, but they might be worried about that. So yeah, try and get as many things out on paper as you possibly can using that and what else question. So we want to get everything down at this point. The next thing we want to do is we want to think about all the things they can influence. So we want to be thinking about this middle circle. I've made it bigger here to illustrate the point, but what are the things that they can do something about? Now, there are far less things on this list, and that's a good thing. So we can really focus our efforts, on what we can actually do something about. So things like mindset going into the exam, how much studying they do, what they eat and drink, how much sleep they get, what they do now, not what they could have done, shoulda, woulda, coulda done 6 months ago or 12 months ago. They can work on their weaker topics. And lastly, they can do past exam papers. This is a really helpful thing to do. It is the best way of studying for any exam, is replay this exact situation you're going to be in as much as possible, so that you can reduce your anxiety and nerves, and also so you can really learn how to play the game, because GCSE and A-levels are a game. They're, depending on the exam board and the mark scheme, I always say to teens, exams are not a test of intelligence. They're not even a test of how well you know the content. They're a test of how well you know the mark scheme. So that's a super good thing to do if we want to do brilliantly in exams. But we want to be thinking lots about what they can influence, and probably in this discussion as well, we can be thinking about what we also can't. So we know that we can't influence what cousin Flossie's done, or what Aunt Jemima is going to think and how she might compare you or not compare you to Flossie, or all these types of things might kind of start coming out as you think about what you can influence. And actually there's only a few things you can really influence, and they're all to do with you, internal to you. We can't influence teachers or cousins or what goes on in the exam paper. We can only influence a small number of things that we can control. So we want to write both these things down, and then we want to reflect. How do we feel when we focus on our concerns? How do we feel there? And often people will say to me they feel overwhelmed. They might say they feel nauseous when they're there. stressed, panicked, worried. So we want to be thinking about how we feel. And how much progress do we make when we're focusing on all our concerns? And I'm sure most of us will agree, not very much. The next thing we want to think about is what happens when we focus on what we can influence. Firstly, how do we feel when we focus there? Often a lot less anxious, a lot more in control, more positive. And how much progress do we make when we focus on what we can influence? A lot more. So we want to think about these things, and these can be helpful things. Where focus goes, energy flows. So where do we want our focus to be? What we focus on will expand. What we give energy to will grow. So do we want to be giving energy to our concerns or the things we can influence? And even if it's 100% justified, for example, your teacher was off sick, or they were newly qualified and they weren't great, or insert whatever problem, even if it's 100% justified, complaining is not a strategy. We've got to focus on what we can influence, and that's what we can do something about. I'd love to know how you get on if you use this exercise and whether or not it's been helpful, either in the comments or reply to my email. Hope this has been useful. Thanks.